Hello and welcome to Bloke on the Range, and it's not quite freezing here today, but I'm all wrapped up warm anyway for a bit of experimentation. And this is a classic example of me not trying things before filming them so that you guys can learn along with me and see my thought process and so on. And what we're playing around with today is my Sterling conversion Lee-Enfield No.4 rifle, converted to 7.62 NATO, a full-blown Sterling conversion with all the bells and whistles. And if you remember earlier videos I've done on this topic, there was the Sterling conversion with a standard military weight barrel, and Enfield did an equivalent known as the L8 series of rifles. Now all of these, pretty much, systematically shot low to the point where Enfield made a rear sight with a lowered datum line so that it would bring the rear aperture up. Basically, the way the front sights are set up to 0 for elevation, there's not enough adjustment. I've got the lowest possible one in here and a standard rear sight. Incidentally, it appears that the odd rear sight with the 100-yard battle zero was one of these special adapted sights, and I had no idea. So we're going to see what's going on because we've got some Saltec Swiss-made M80 ball equivalent, 147 grain, and it just so happens that S&B make 180 grain 308 load that does 735 meters a second, and I'll put what that is in real money down the bottom. This is very, very close to their 180 grain 303 British load, which is 755 meters a second, and they're both close enough for government work with an actual Mark 7 or Mark 7Z, which is 174 grains at 2,440 feet per second. So what we're going to do is we're going to see whether it's to do with the ammunition rather than something else with the slightly smaller hole down the barrel, and see what's going on, because if it's that, then what we should see is that a group shot with the 180 grain load that more or less mimics 303 should shoot significantly higher, like the difference between 100 yards and 400 yards higher. We'll see. And basically, these are not the most rigid of actions, and there's an awful lot that goes on between the primer being ignited by the firing pin and the bullet leaving the barrel. There's this phenomenon called jump, and it's a mixture of flexing and vibrating and the whole rifle moving. It's very, I mean, they were measuring this in the late 19th century. There's all sorts of interesting stuff in the textbook of small arms 1904 on it, and there's more discussion, different discussion in the textbook of small arms 1929. It's a very interesting phenomenon, and we'll see what happens. What I also have just at a shot here is an L39, which has a heavy target barrel, and these shoot very, very well indeed, particularly at long range due to a phenomenon called compensation, which is also related to the jump and the vibrations. So that's got several more inches of barrel in it, a much heavier barrel, and we're going to see if whatever effect or no effect we get in the standard military configuration, if we get the same in a heavy target configuration. So what I've done so far is I've blown the cobwebs out of both of these, and we're going to shoot some 10-round groups. And actually, this so far has not been very impressive on the grouping, which is another thing that comes up in Skeleton's books, that the light barrels apparently didn't shoot that well as a general rule, and it seems that various forms of centre bedding, and there's a Walter Magny custom job which has a centre bedding block here, and that actually has a top pressure block here. So what we might do after I've shot them both, and we've got groups of each, what I might do is shim it up at the front, because when I first got this, it was slightly off centre. It had a little bit of diagonal pressure, but what seems to have happened over time is that it's now down pressure, but there's not very much of it. So I might put a cork shim in there and see what happens. And also, if that doesn't make it shoot really well, we'll see. This might not happen. We'll see what happens. This might shoot better than I'd anticipated. Anyway, we're just here to find out and experiment. So what I'm going to do is start with the Saltec, and I've got a bunch of targets out there at 50 meters, and I'm going to keep track of what's going on, and I'll take you down with the camera to have a look at each stage. So hopefully this is going to be interesting. I have literally no idea how this is going to pan out, so fingers crossed. always helps if you push your earplug in all the way. So this is Saltec Sterling conversion. Actually, I'm going to put my wrist under in the official manner. And I'm loading from the box just to keep the rate of fire down so that it doesn't get too warm. Five, wishing I brought my shooting jacket. Well, this is the best group this thing's ever shot on me. Of course, just after I say it, it generally doesn't shoot very well. Well, this is by far the best group this has ever shot. 10. Ow. A little bit of split group. Right. So that it doesn't get too hot, I'm going to put that off to the side. Oof. And we're going to do the same thing with the L39. So I've got a pretty good main group and then a couple of flyers. So I'm wondering what's happening there. And they were late in the group, so maybe it got warm. I think we probably will see what a shim will do. Okay, now shooting at a different target. And again. Need more light. That's ended up underneath. Oh, I can't have more light. That's as much light as Messrs. Parker and Hale will give me. I'm also shooting with a post. Oh, far less recoil. Check they're going where they're meant to be going. Yep. Ooh, yeah. All those Lee-Enfields aren't accurate, FUDs can get in the sea. Oh my god, that is beautiful. And this is just bog standard M80 ball equivalent. That's okay, it's Swiss, but even so. Oh, yes. These rifles can't keep up with the modern, properly rigid action stuff, but even so, they can still pull it out. And those barrels are optimized for the 144 grain RG, and they're quite tight. So what we're going to do now is move on to the S&B, and because I'm struggling to keep count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get that out the way. Now, as an aside, the case capacity of 303 British and 308 Winchester / 7.62 NATO is basically the same. So with the same weight of bullet and the same sort of powder, and there's no magic in the powder, they're going to generate roughly the same pressures. So this is going to be running at probably a little bit less pressure than the NATO ball, but let us see. Get my shoulder beaten up again. So that's the same height as the main group, but further to the right. This is not as easy to shoot as the L39. It's hurting a little. So some of this is me. Ow. Ah, God, that's over. Right, so that is a group about the same size. There's one flyer instead of two, down about the same amount, and yeah, the group's possibly a little wider. But that part of that's due to me, because that rifle, I thought there's going to be enough padding in this blanket shirt, but there clearly isn't. Right, L39. So much less recoil. Where'd that go?
Skip to the end.
And I didn't screw it up with my last shot either. So let's go downrange and have a look. So this is the Sterling conversion, and that's the main group, sort of on the line there, and two flyers low. The main part of that group is actually pretty good. I'm quite happy with that. I wonder why there's those two flyers low. And with the S&B, the main group is basically at the same level with one flyer about the same amount down. So surprisingly, I was expecting them to go up here somewhere, but they didn't, which I think is interesting. Now if we move over to the L39, that's the NATO ball, which is already pretty good. And then with the S&B, it's moved down a little bit to the right, but wow, I am very happy with that 10 round group. Boo to the fuds that say Enfields can't shoot straight. Seems the Brits never got the memo. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do now, wondering if it might have an impact on those flies, is I am going to put a little cork shim in the Sterling conversion off camera, because YouTube's rules that they won't actually state might look upon that poorly. So basically going to cut a little rectangle of cork sheet and just put it in there, make sure it's not clamping the barrel against the front handguard, and then we'll shoot another group and see what happens. Well, the cork was too thick up there, so I'm going to put it in the central position, and the graphite is just to lubricate it somewhat. So as usual here at Bloke on the Range, things don't work out as planned. I ended up, well, the cork's too thick up the front. I tried it centre bedded with it. It's still too thick. It pushes the stock down too much, causes too much up pressure. I tried it off camera and it ended up shooting even lower, which is kind of not what we want. So what I've done is, while I've got it in this state, it's not being clamped by the fore end, by the top handguard. So I'm just going to do a test group. I can't do this too much because I've only got 20 and a couple rounds left. So I've got enough for 2 more 10 round groups, basically, max. So let's just see, for interest, what this does and where it goes. Nah, that's pretty all over the place. Right, so what I'm going to do is just try and card shim it underneath at the bottom here. Be right back.
A few moments later.
Okay, so giving it the finger test, just a little bit of ammo box, just like rectangle of ammo box on the front bearing. That feels a lot more centered, and there's a little bit more up pressure, not very much, but let's just see how this goes. First one went way left when I did fire a couple of rounds just to get the bedding settled again, but let's just see if that first one was the outlier. I'll give it an extra one at the end. Yeah, it looks like the first one was an outlier, probably hadn't settled it down. Ha! And the last shot gives me 1 low. First shot flyer, let's ignore that. It's about the same as the others, and there's still losing 1 down. Intriguing, intriguing. What have we learnt from this? Well, the shooting low thing is not simply due to the weight of bullet at the velocity it's going being different compared between 7.62 NATO and 303. There is something going on differently because the slower, heavier S&B was, okay, it was going to the right, so there is something being affected in the jump, but height-wise, there was little or nothing in it, certainly nothing compared to the, like, 300 yard, or difference between 100 and 400 yard gap between the sights when fitted with the 303 barrel and with the 7.62 barrel. So fairly inconclusive. It must be something fundamentally to do with something else. It's certainly linked to the jump because there's no other way it could possibly go. Anyway, I'm going to muse on this some more. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tolerating me turning so much money into noise. A lot of cases to clean up. I hope it was at least vaguely interesting. So anyway, thank you so much to our supporters on Patreon and Utreon who keep us ticking along nicely. And yeah, see you again. Bye.